you for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, you have been impacted by endometriosis because you have the illness. Can you talk to us about what your journey with it has been like?
Yes, I was diagnosed in 2014. It was Christmas break. I had no idea that I even had the disease at all. No, at least I didn't think I did because the symptoms were normal, according to my doctor. And so I was left with the impression that, oh, this is just what it is. I got a cyst ruptured it was Christmas break, and my cyst ruptured and I ended up in the hospital. I didn't know, and that's how I got diagnosed.
So, it took a cyst rupturing for you to get a diagnosis. And were you complaining? I want to say complain, that's not even the right word. Were you informing doctors throughout the years of these painful symptoms?
I was, yes, and it was disregarded as many other things like gas or irritable bowel syndrome, but
Yeah.
it was never even considered to be endometriosis.
What were some of the symptoms so that people that are watching that might think they have endo but are not sure? What are some of the symptoms that you experienced?
I had the bloating, so there's a difference between bloating and endobelly. Now I know this, but
Oh, yeah.
so yeah, it's very painful. I always thought that was
Yeah.
normal. Back pain, like really bad back pain. I would get a nerve on the side of my leg that would always bother me as well. That was not normal, and it was just debilitating pain. And with that, it's like when you can't move, that's not normal. When you're calling out of school sick, you can't do normal things like with your friends and hanging out. Like those are like red flags.
hmm hmm So, how did it feel when you were finally given a diagnosis? What were your emotions like?
I was relieved for sure. It was good to get answers, and that, for being disregarded for so long or misdiagnosed for so long, it was a huge relief to understand that, like, what I was feeling was valid and it wasn't just in my head. I wasn't crazy, it wasn't normal. And to hear that, I felt heard.
Yeah. I think there is a hurt, and I know for me, I wouldn't necessarily say it was anger, but I had a doctor, two doctors actually, before I was diagnosed back in 2016. And one of them was so flippant with me, so flippant, and was just like, hey, listen, like you've got either a hormonal imbalance or the flu, bye bye. And it was in an ER. And then I went to a general gynecologist, and she was like, yeah, you're really sick. And I don't know why you're bleeding this much, but you probably have a hormonal imbalance or also a virus. And then she said, here, take a pack of birth control pills if you can't handle the bleeding. And it was just, to me, it was vindicating when I found out that I did have something wrong with me. But I ended up calling that doctor that told me to take the pack of birth control pills. And I was like, hey, listen. And she was all nervous on the phone. And I said, hey, listen, I'm not here to yell at you. I'm here to inform you that you were way off on this. And I actually have a disease called endometriosis, and I need surgery, obviously, to properly diagnose it. But they're suspecting endometriosis. And if you have another person that walks into your office with symptoms like mine, send them to a specialist. Just admit that you don't know and send them to someone who might. And she got really upset with me. But I was upset with her because it was like, how many people have you done this to before? What do you feel like are some of the frustrations that people that have endometriosis encounter, even now, even right, even with the Endo Foundation and all of these other nonprofits and advocates and celebrities using their voices? Even now, I feel like endo is still in the shadows a bit. So what for you are you like, we need to do a better job of in terms of informing the public?
I agree. I mean, it's very frustrating, like even with the awareness that celebrities are thank God doing. I mean, Amy Schumer
Mhm.
recently with her operation, it's still not enough, I feel like, because even like OBGYNs, for example, they're not you need a specialist for this. For this condition, you need a specialist, and I learned that the hard way, unfortunately. So, spreading awareness is so key, especially through social media. I feel like that's key in all of this, and that's how I was fortunate enough to learn about Dr. Suchkin, who really, like, helped me so much, and I'm so grateful.
Mhm.
But with this, it's OBGYNs, I feel like, need to be the ones to really inform their patients and lead them in the right direction, because I was actually mistreated for a very long time and I suffered because of that. I'm grateful that, like, my OBGYN at the time was also my surgeon that, you know, removed my cyst and a couple of lesions, but at the time, they did the treatment with laser as opposed to the gold standard that is excision surgery. So that's something I want to definitely spread awareness on. And it
Yeah.
shouldn't, because that comes back with vengeance if you just laser it off.
That's
That
the
is I
that's
learned.
that's known as ablation, right?
Yes.
They just they get rid of for those that might not know, and again, we're not doctors, but just giving the knowledge that ablation is when they take the surface, not the root of the endo lesion. And like you said, it can come back with a vengeance. I've had several friends that had ablation first and then had to have excision later, and they were in terrible, terrible pain. Again, excision is considered the gold standard in the endo community at this point. I think we're all hoping for a day when there'll be something else that won't have to be so deeply invasive. I mean, even diagnostically, you still need a tissue sample from a lab in order to even know that you have the disease. Other than that, there's no way to really even confirm it, even though they're working on different ways. But it is because of the pioneer surgeons and researchers that we're getting further and further that this work is being done. But it feels like for the person with endo that it's a long ways away. And I also think with endometriosis too, it's not like it's a one and done kind of thing, right? You can break your arm, you get it sent, you put it set in a cast, it heals up, you go to physical therapy. Most of the time, you make a recovery from that. Or if you have a surgery with it, you make a recovery from that. With endo, it's one of those diseases where you're never quite sure if that's your last surgery, if that's your last pain, if how you're going to lead your life, if it's going to impact your fertility, how it's going to impact your fertility, if it's going to impact your pregnancy, even if you were able to get pregnant, whether it was naturally or conceived through IVF. Like, I never knew certain things. I did IVF because I was infertile from endo at a very young age, and that was the only way I could get pregnant, and I was given a small window to get pregnant. And I was, under the care of great doctors for pretty much all of the pregnancy, but my OB, I could not find an OB where I lived that knew anything about endo, and he was a high risk doctor. I ended up bleeding out on the table during my C-section because apparently this could be common with when you have endo, like a wobbly uterus or whatever they call it. And my son was born at over 9 pounds. So even though I did a C-section, I bled out. I had to have 2 blood transfusions. The nurses didn't even think I could make it. And when I told Dr. Sechkin what happened, he was just like, yeah, that is a real possibility. And I said, what's crazy? Nobody prepared. We didn't have blood on hand. Nobody prepared. If I knew that, I don't even know if I would have ever had my son, because I would have been so scared. But there's just so much to the disease that we don't know. And I'm not trying to tell my story to like scare anyone. But my point being is that, like, it's a disease that isn't just period cramps or anything like that. It like affects everything. Everything.
It really does.
Yeah.
That's what spreading the awareness is all about. It's just like information that will help us make better decisions and seek help sooner, and getting a diagnosis quicker can help in the long run. And
Yeah.
I know for me, I think ever since my period, I was feeling that pain and I
Mhm.
didn't know. I just considered it normal. My mom didn't know. It actually ran in my family, and I
Really?
had no idea. Yeah, it did. And me
Huh.
speaking up and spreading awareness, and I come from a very, you know, culturally we're not very outspoken, and it was kind of taboo too to like not speak about women's health for
Right.
whatever reason. Well, I'm the black sheep. I'm just like, no, like we need to get it out. We need to get this out there because God knows if it is in our family. And
Right.
it actually was my cousin from Switzerland, my aunt's daughter. So I'm guessing it's on my mom's side. She heard about my situation and what happened with me after my surgery. Then she went and got checked because she was having similar symptoms. And she asked me, she's
Mm.
like, what did you feel? And I would tell, I told her, I said, this, similar. She couldn't conceive either for a while, 5 years of marriage, couldn't conceive. They kept trying, got the surgery. They did find endo, got the surgery overseas. Within less than a couple months, and God, she was able to conceive. So
Mhm.
it's very important with that, and also like awareness for treatment options. It's not just sometimes you can prevent surgery if you
Mhm.
treat it properly, catch it earlier, treat
Yes.
it properly. That's
Yes.
another thing I'd love to bring awareness to.
Yeah. I think, it's like you wish you could go back to your 11-year-old self and get the early intervention, because as we know, many times endo is a progressive disease that becomes, even with the staging of it all, the longer it goes, the worse it becomes, the more insidious it becomes deep infiltrating. Not for everyone, but for many people, that's what ends up happening. So if you can educate early, and you can at least give people the information and the tools and the symptoms and the signs, so that they can at least say, oh, wait a minute, this isn't normal that I'm having intense back pain or bleeding all throughout different parts of the month outside of my menstrual cycle, or I'm having, this belly bloat that looks like I'm 3 to 5 months pregnant. Like, these are all not okay things. So that there's a way to get treatment before having to go and have the disease complicate so many things. And as we know, it is one of the leading causes, if not the leading cause, of infertility. And I always say, even if you have no interest in having children, it's really nice to have the option than having it robbed from you from a nasty disease. Um, but thank you. I follow you on Instagram. I watch what you post. You're always using your voice to spread awareness. And I love that the endo community, we are our own tribe. And even though we're not always heard as loudly as we want to be, we're all shouting from the rooftops to pay attention to the 1 in 10 with endometriosis, to the 200 million globally, because every single one's voices matter. Their loved ones that love them matter. And everyone deserves their best quality of life.
Absolutely. And I follow you as well, and you're doing so many great things. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
You appreciate everything.